Have you ever noticed you don't wake up in the morning choosing to worry? You don't say, "Today, I think I'll carry anxiety like a briefcase." And yet it's there, like a quiet shadow that follows you from the moment you open your eyes, whispering, "What if?" Have you ever considered that your fear might be trying to save you? Worry isn't something we plan, it just happens. But Carl Jung of the great minds of modern psychology believed this wasn't just a personal flaw. He saw worry as a symptom of something much deeper, a division within the self. According to Jung, every person lives with a split the self you were born to be and the version you've been shaped into by the world around you. Family, culture, expectations. Over time, the authentic you slowly disappears beneath layers of performance and adaptation, and that's where anxiety starts to grow. It's not just about deadlines or to-do lists. It's the quiet scream of a soul that's been separated from its truth for too long. A part of you that says, "This isn't me. Something's off. I can't keep pretending." But here's the problem. We've been taught to silence that voice, to distract, to cope, to push through. Jung's insight was simple yet profound. The more you ignore that inner split, the louder the anxiety becomes. Worry isn't weakness, it's a message. So the real question isn't, how do I get rid of this feeling? It's, what part of me has been trying to speak all along? So here's the deeper truth that most people never learn. Worry doesn't come out of nowhere. It's not some random glitch in your brain. It's the echo of a split within you between the self you show the world and the parts of you you've locked away. Carl Jung built his life's work around this idea that what we suppress doesn't just disappear. The unconscious isn't a trash bin, it's a storage room. And everything you shove in there, your fear, your anger, your shame, even your unmet needs, keeps living inside you, quietly, patiently, until one day it speaks. And often it speaks through anxiety. You try to silence the worry. You meditate, rationalize, stay busy, distract yourself, but nothing lasts. Because the voice you're fighting, it's you. Or more precisely, the parts of you you've forgotten. The parts the world told you were too much, too messy, too inconvenient. Jung warned us clearly, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That's not just poetic, it's personal. It means if you don't face what's inside, it ends up driving your choices from the shadows. You think you're making decisions freely, but really, you're reacting subconsciously to wounds you never healed. So the question isn't just, how do I stop worrying? The question is, what part of me have I refused to see that's finally asking to be heard? Because maybe your anxiety isn't the problem. Maybe it's the invitation. Most people think of anxiety as a glitch, something to fix, something that means you're broken or weak. But Carl Jung saw it differently. He believed anxiety isn't just a mental hiccup. It's a spiritual signal, a warning that your soul is in conflict with the life you're living. Jung spent decades studying what he called autonomous complexes, fragments of your psyche that broke off during times of emotional pain or trauma. These aren't just memories. They're living energy inside you, still active, still shaping how you react, often without you even knowing. Ever felt a wave of fear right before you speak your truth? Or that nagging voice that tells you you're not good enough, even when you are? Jung would say that's not weakness. That's not even the real you. That's a forgotten part of your soul trying to be heard. And worry? That's one of the loudest ways these hidden parts cry out. See, we're taught to treat worry like a nusancero, shut it down, push it aside, distract ourselves. But Jung invites us to see it differently. He once said, people will do anything no matter how absurd to avoid facing their own soul. And he was right. We'd rather scroll for hours, micromanage life, or drown in overthinking just to avoid sitting still and listening. But what if worry isn't here to haunt you? What if it's here to wake you up? Because when your soul feels unseen, unheard, unacknowledged, it doesn't stay silent. It whispers, and then it screams. What happens when we refuse to face our pain? We don't bury it, we project it. When you haven't dealt with your past, your guilt, your fears, your unresolved grief, it doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It spills out onto your relationships, your job, even how you see the world. Carl Jung believed this is where most anxiety begins, not with the outside world, but with the lens through which we view it. Two people can live the exact same moment, yet one feels grounded, the other overwhelmed. Why? Because one is reacting to the moment, the other is reacting to a wound. When we avoid our unconscious, when we push it aside, hoping it'll disappear, it doesn't shrink, it expands, it gets louder, stronger, and eventually it starts calling the shots. You might try to numb the pain with productivity, with endless distractions, with control. But the more you run, the more disconnected you become. And that disconnection, that hollow, unsettled feeling inside, it's not weakness. It's a symptom of being out of alignment with yourself. Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain, not to scare you, but to liberate you." Because when you stop pretending, when you stop running, that pain, it softens. Not all at once, but slowly, gently, because you're no longer treating it like the enemy. You're letting it speak. You're listening. And in that moment of honesty, when you finally turn inward instead of outward, that's where healing begins. What if the goal isn't to eliminate worry, but to understand it? Carl Jung never said, get rid of your anxiety. What he offered was something much more powerful and much more difficult. He said, integrate it. Don't fight the worry. Don't silence it. Get curious. Let it lead you. To Jung, worry wasn't a flaw. It was a signal. And like any good signal, it's not here to torment you, it's here to guide you. Dreams, projections, triggers. These aren't just mental noise. They're breadcrumbs, little clues from your unconscious, pointing you back to something deeper, something buried, something real. Shadow work, dream analysis, journaling, your reactions, they all help you piece together what that anxiety is actually trying to say. Because it always has something to say. And the moment you stop resisting it and start listening, it begins to shift. Worry transforms. It stops feeling like a prison and starts becoming a map that leads you back to yourself. But here's the catch. Most people don't want to let go of worry. And not because they enjoy it, but because the ego does. The ego wants control. It feeds on certainty, on plans, on knowing exactly what's going to happen next. So to live without worry, that feels dangerous, vulnerable. It feels like standing in the middle of life without armor. But that's exactly where real peace begins. When you stop seeing worry as an enemy to conquer and instead recognize it as a messenger you've ignored for too long, that's when the healing starts. Carl Jung never told us to destroy the ego. He didn't call it evil or toxic. In fact, he believed the ego plays an important role. It helps us navigate the world. It helps us survive. But here's where things get dangerous. When we start thinking the ego is the whole story, when we confuse the mask with the face beneath it, you see, the ego loves control. It wants to know what's next. It wants to predict, plan, perfect. It craves certainty, image, safety. That's not inherently wrong. But when the ego runs the show, your life becomes a performance. And inside, you start to feel like an actor who's forgotten the script was never real. And this is where anxiety creeps in. Not because the world is chaotic, though it can be, but because the ego can't bear the idea of not knowing. It panics at the thought of failure, of being misunderstood, of not being enough. That constant hum of fear, that inner tension you can't quite name, that's the ego gripping the wheel too tightly. Jung believed true strength doesn't come from control, but from trust. Not the naive kind of trust that says everything will be fine, but the deeper kind, the kind that says, even if things fall apart, I won't lose who I am. He wrote, Real power isn't controlling life, it's trusting what you are. That's not about surrendering to fat tates, about remembering there's something wiser, something more whole beneath the surface mind, something that's not rattled by every wave of doubt. So the question isn't, how do I stay in control? The real question is, can I live fully even when I'm not? Because the part of you that needs control is not the same part of you that knows peace. And when you finally let the deeper self lead, the fear begins to fade. We've been taught that peace comes from control, from certainty, from having all the answers all the time. But Carl Jung pointed to a deeper truth. Peace doesn't come from certainty. It comes from wholeness. You see, your soul was never looking for perfection. It was never asking you to be unshakable, untouchable, unbothered. It was asking you to remember, to come home to yourself. And that means letting go of the illusion that worry is your shield. Because it's not. Worry was never protection. It was a signal, a messenger, a part of you whispering, you've been living out of alignment with who you really are. When you stop clinging to worry like a security blanket, when you stop feeding the fear every time it shows up, you begin to create something rare in this world. Space. Space to breathe. Space to feel. Space to listen not to your panic, but to your truth. And no, it's not about being perfect. It's not about becoming some flawless spiritual version of yourself. It's about catching yourself when you spiral and asking, is this fear or is this fact? It's about noticing when you're trying to control someone's perception of you and choosing to show up anyway. It's about allowing uncertainty to exist without letting it define you. Because here's the truth, life was never certain. It was never supposed to be. Carl Jung wouldn't say, you'll never worry again. He'd say, know yourself so completely that worry no longer owns you. And when that happens, when you finally integrate what was hidden, when the unconscious stops pulling strings in the dark, you don't have to fear the unknown anymore. You've met yourself. You've chosen truth over image, wholeness over performance. That's not fantasy. That is what real freedom feels like.